Welcome back. You're watching News Center with me, Ashmit Kumar. Now, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow at the SCO Heads of Government meeting, just a day after talks with his counterpart Sergei Lavrov. The two sides firmed up plans for the India-Russia summit this December, where Putin is set to return to India for the first time since 2021. While Jaishankar was briefing Putin and other Russian leaders, Patrushev, an aide to Putin, met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi to review preparations for the December summit. The Russian embassy in India posted later on X saying that the leaders held detailed discussions on a wide range of issues related to bilateral cooperation, and this summit isn't just routine. It marks the 25th anniversary of the India-Russia Strategic Partnership Declaration and comes at a time when global tensions are high and Trump's tariffs are reshaping geopolitical equations. Joining us now to take this discussion ahead is with us senior Russian journalist Tatiana Kukhareva and Professor Amitaabh Singh from JNU Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies. I'd like to thank both of our panelists for joining us. First to you, Professor Singh. Just want to get a sense that the big news trigger, of course, that we saw today is that Russia going all out, saying that Sukhoi 57, their frontline fighters, fifth generation stealth fighters, extremely protected technology. Russia says we're open to a transfer of technology arrangement with India. We're open to have the Su-57 being manufactured, being produced here in India. I just want to get a sense, is it merely a reaction to closer ties that India now has with US, with France in terms of military and defense? Or is it perhaps a bigger message that Putin wants to send out before his visit to India in December?
Thank you, Ashmit, for having me here. You know, the difference between when we purchase our defense goods from Russia or from any other country is that Russia generally gives the licensing rights, the production rights, and the transfer of technology to defense components, even the entire defense product for that matter. If you see the development of BrahMos missile, it's jointly developed by India and Russia. We have been making them, selling them to other countries, including Philippines, Armenia, and many other states which are in the pipeline. So that's the difference that we have. It's not about Putin coming to here, coming to India, and it's in the background of this. This has been happening for years now. And it was earlier also during Soviet period that we used to get the technology, unlike the Western counterparts. For example, last year, when Prime Minister Modi went to Washington and met Biden, they agreed to have GE plane engines to be manufactured in India. They transfer the technology, but with the limitation that this transfer of technology cannot be further used to sell it abroad, those engines. So that's the difference. That's why we prefer Russian defense commodities. And for years, we have been doing that, Ashmit.
Fair enough. We also have with us Tatiana Kukhareva, who's joining us. Tatiana, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Again, I was just having a conversation with Professor Singh on the importance of the Su-57 being offered, transfer of technology being offered. I just want to get a sense that at a time when we have a very hawkish US administration, what kind of ties can Russia and India explore on, even on defense terms, realistically, given as how that even for the S-400, the US was not very happy, Donald Trump has not been very happy, and they're looking to clamp down on this partnership. Realistically, how much more wiggle room is there available for Putin and for the Indian Prime Minister to explore even greater defense ties?
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be on with you this evening. Look, it has been already, you know, the pressures that have been put on both India and Moscow have been quite extensive. However, this partnership between Moscow and New Delhi has already proven itself as sort of a staple for the global South. You know, the two states who are unafraid to stand up for each other's and their own national interests. And I believe that no matter what the American administration, any American administration wants, you know, we need to remember that an American administration will always work in the concept of America first. So with the understanding that for Prime Minister Modi and for President Putin, it has been about India first and Russia first, respectively. This partnership can still be extremely fruitful for both countries. Because, I think that both have already proven that despite the pressure, the fruits of that partnership, be that economic, be that energetic partnership, be that defense partnership, have already been exceeding all expectations and exceeding the amount of pressure as well.
Well, I just want to ask a follow-up question that this comes at a time when India is negotiating a trade deal with the United States, and India has shown that there are some aspects that it's willing to relent on. It has stopped buying Russian oil, one, and two, has also agreed to buy LPG, 10% of its domestic requirement from the United States. Having shown that, again, I ask the same question that at a time when India is negotiating a trade deal with Donald Trump, when he's looking to slap a lot of tariffs, is there, again, as you said, pressure on both Moscow and Delhi in terms of perhaps peter down the level of cooperation that they can ideally showcase before the world?
Well, this is the tricky part about negotiating with Donald Trump, is that you can't negotiate without having a firm hand. And I believe that Prime Minister Modi has already shown that he has his interests and he's willing to stand up for them. And he's not going to agree to any deal that is not in India's interests. So with that in mind, we need to also remember that Donald Trump's negotiations technique is about trying to push the other side into a corner. I believe that these negotiations are still going to prove very, very interesting in some time to come because, it still comes down to the fact that Prime Minister Modi is very firm about India's interests, and it just so happens that that India is allowed in this world to have the interests that not always align with the US ones, and that's okay.
So make Russia... So again, it needs to be a Russia first, India first approach. Professor Singh, I'll again come to you. A similar question that at a time when India is negotiating this trade deal with Donald Trump, again, no clarity on when we can perhaps hope for some clarity on that. The question that I want to ask you is, at the time of these negotiations, hosting Russian president here in the national capital, what message is India looking to send to Washington in the midst of these negotiations and conversations?
Ashmit, first of all, this is an annual exercise which India and Russia has been doing for the past 25 years, except for a few years during the COVID and a year or two after the start of the Ukraine war. We have been doing this. So this should not come as a surprise to the best. The second question, the most important part, that we are negotiating with US on a trade deal. Yes, we are doing that. Prior to that, we had a very good relation with Russia. We used to buy defense goods from them. During the Ukraine war, when the prices of the oil went down in Russia, we started buying oil from them. But because of the sanctions against Lukoil and Rosneft, we have actually, sort of stopped buying oil from them because of the sanctions. Now, this will not have any implications for India-America tariff deal that we are likely going to sign. And we have shown signs of it also earlier. And it's not that Prime Minister Modi is only meeting Putin. President Trump also met Putin earlier. So it's part of a diplomatic exercise and nobody raises eyebrows. But the only fact is that at this time when Donald Trump has been negotiating, or we are trying to negotiate with US, this will come as a sort of diplomatic coup for India, in the sense that we will try to understand what's there that we can further increase our relationship with Russia. That has been a bone of contention.
That's an interesting perspective that you give to us. That's an interesting perspective that you're giving to us, that it could perhaps play the role of a diplomatic coup, given that Putin is coming after 2021 to India for the first time. We're completely out of time. Professor Singh, I'll just come to you for one final question. Russia also is now developing very close partnership with countries like Pakistan. It has a no-limits partnership with China. This new dynamic that is at play when Putin comes to Delhi, how does that change conversations as to where India-Russia ties can go from here? Does that inherently perhaps put restrictions on Moscow from exploring deeper engagement with the Indian administration?
Russia has made it very clear that in Russia-Pakistan relationship will not be at the cost of India. They have made it in so many words clear, in so many words. Russia-China partnership, it has always been there. And we have always tried to see Russia with our own eyes rather than with the Chinese eyes, so as to say. That relationship with China has, developed and has been closer during the Russia-Ukraine war. But that notwithstanding, we have a tremendous relationship with Russia. Our 70% of military hardware is dependent on Russian supplies, right? And they supply it, they have been supplying it for long. We cannot just simply abandon our relationship because China is closer to Russia. We are much more closer to Russia historically, sentimentally, emotionally, whatever you might call it. And this is going to continue. China is a rival for us, both economically and we have military problems with border issues with each other.
Right, Professor.
But that would not come in between India-Russia relations.
Well, a lot of these questions will get answered perhaps when President Putin lands here in Delhi. We're given to understand it's likely to be in the first week of December. Of course, we'll continue to get our viewers the latest on that visit. But that, unfortunately, is all the time that we have. I'd like to thank both of our panelists, Ms. Kukhareva, Professor Singh. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. More news and updates will continue right here on CNBC-TV18.